Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm reviewing the new Halloween. This was directed by David Gordon Green and stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Will Patton, Judy Greer and Nick Castle. This film takes place 40 years after the original. They recaptured Michael Myers and his return to the sanitarium. Laurie Strode has become a bit of a recluse and has been preparing herself for the last 40 years of Michael's return. She's convinced that he will break out of the sanitarium and return to Haddonfield, causing havoc once again. Life for Laurie Strode hasn't been easy over the past 40 years. She's really been affected by the experience that she's had. She's very paranoid, she's scared to leave her little security of her home, and she's been preparing herself with firearms and a variety of weapons to defend herself. She has a turbulent relationship with her estranged daughter, played by Judy Greer, who she trained as well when she was a kid, but her daughter was taken away when she was 12 years old. And so the relationship between her and her daughter hasn't been really strong, has had a lot of ups and downs. She also has a granddaughter, and the granddaughter's really trying to have a relationship with the grandmother, trying to accept her for who she is and trying to help her deal with the things that she's going through. Laurie Strode's fear of Michael coming back comes true. After a bus crash, he escapes along with other patients from the sanitarium that were being transferred to a new hospital, and he returns to Haddonfield, his hometown, and starts to wreak havoc once again. And it's up to the police and Laurie Strode to finally put him down. It all leads to a surprising and suspenseful ending that you're not quite sure what's going to transpire as it gets there. And who will survive this night and get through this with Michael Myers on the loose. As you've probably seen in my previous videos, this was a film I was very excited about. It was a highly anticipated film for me because I'm a massive fan of the original film. I think it is my favourite horror film of all time, and it is one of the great sort of horror films. And Michael Myers, I think, is one of the great horror icons to come out of that sort of era. And I like him a lot better than the other icons such as Freddy Krueger and Leatherface and Jason Voorhees. And I wasn't disappointed with this film. I really enjoyed it. I know there's a lot of people out there and a lot of reviewers who didn't quite enjoy it and found issues with it and thought it could have been a lot better. There was this whole thing going around that I've heard a variety of things that they felt that it should have been reinventing the wheel, and it didn't do that. And I thought, to me, it's not a film that needs to reinvent things. I think that's been the problem with all the sequels that have followed the first film, is they tried to do something different. They tried to take it in a direction that didn't quite work. And look, don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of some of the original Halloween films. 2's good and 4 and H2O didn't mind. But I just feel with this film, it's sort of getting back to the basics, getting back to what made the original film so good. And I think they've captured that. It's ultimately a homage to the original film, is what I feel this film is. And I think a lot of people have not quite understanding what this film's trying to be, and they're picking at it and expecting it to be, like I said, reinventing the wheels, expecting it to be like a reboot or something like that, but it's not. It's contained. It's trying to get back to the roots of what made the first film good, and also closing off the story in a way. It's been 40 years, and it really looks at, people who've been through trauma. Laurie Strode's a good example of that. She's been through this horrific event, and it looks at the effect that this trauma has had on her, and how it's shaped her world and her experiences, and how she's fearful of things. And not many films do this. I saw an interview with Jamie Lee Curtis, and she was talking about how when people go through trauma in these sort of movies, and these movies are aimed at young people, you never see the aftermath. You see this, our fearless leader, as I call them, coming in, overcoming something and stopping the bad person or creature or whatever it is. But we don't see the effects that has on that particular character. And we never go back to that and show this person how the experience they've had has shaped them and changed them in such a way they can't express. And I think this film does that really well, and that's a really good positive in this film. And I think Jamie Lee Curtis does a really brilliant job as Laurie Strode here, and dealing with that trauma and the effects of the trauma that she's gone through. Watching her friends getting killed and nearly becoming a victim herself. And she wants control. And I think that's a great example of what this film really does. It's a homage to the original, but it looks at trauma. And it looks at Laurie Strode and what she's been up to in the last 40 years. And her paranoia and her fearfulness of things transpiring the way they are. And I think that's a really great thing about this film, and really great what they look at it. I think all the acting's solid. I think Jamie Lee Curtis is brilliant. She does a really fantastic job as Laurie Strode, and it's good to see her back in sort of this sort of role. She's returning to the role that really made her famous, that really put her on the map. And I think that's fantastic as well, the opportunity to return to playing a character like that. I love that Nick Castle's back playing the Shape. He's so great. To bring back the original guy who played the Shape, I think he's fantastic. Obviously he didn't do all the stunts, but just the fact he was there was brilliant. I think Will Patton does a really solid job in this as well. I think he's a really good actor, and I think this role he plays as Hawkins, as a deputy sheriff, I think he does a really fantastic job here, and I really like his character. Judy Greer does okay for what she has as well. All the other performances are okay, but these are the main ones that really stood out. Before I get into too much more of it, I sort of want to talk about the negatives. So about the things I didn't quite like or quite enjoy as much. I felt that some of the characters were pointless and there wasn't a lot of depth to them. I found the boyfriends of the two lead teenagers, I don't think did a really great job, and they were very wasted, and I didn't see the point of them being in it. I gathered with all the teenagers they were trying to get back to what the original film did, but I felt that those characters were a bit more likable in a certain way than these sort of characters, but they get a lot more screen time in that sort of film as well. There's a lot of setup with this. We don't get a lot of information about these particular teenagers. Like Laurie Strode's granddaughter, Alison Strode, like we don't know a lot about her. I do like her performance in this, and I do like her sort of character, but there isn't a lot that she has to do, and she doesn't have the opportunity to shine as much as she could have. I think there is the African American sheriff, I don't know what his name is. I think his character was pointless. I think they should have made Hawkins the sheriff and not this other character, because he didn't serve any purpose whatsoever, and I wasn't quite sure who he was until they revealed it much later in the film. It just felt like he was the mayor of something of the town. It was really strange, and it didn't quite work for me. And Judy Greer's character, her husband, I'm not sure what the actor's name is, but I really didn't like that character at all. He offered really silly and stupid humour that didn't quite work for me, and I didn't really like his character. I felt the humour in it didn't quite work as well as it could have, and I think that's Danny McBride's contributing comedy to this sort of film, and I don't think it quite worked the way it should have. A lot of the jokes don't hit, they're not very funny, they don't work very well at all, and it makes the characters look kind of stupid. There's a couple of other cop characters that are kind of pointless in it and don't really serve any purpose, that are arguing over what's the best thing to have for dinner, a sandwich or a brownie and pudding. It was a really bizarre scene. And there's an introduction of another doctor, a Loomis type doctor, which he's okay, but he doesn't serve a lot of purpose for the film either, I don't think. And some of the dialogue is a bit clunky. But that's all I have to sort of really pick at this film. I just got lost in it. It was taking me back to the original film. It was very nostalgic. I got a lot out of it, and I thoroughly enjoyed Laurie Strode's character and the development of that and the arc of that character. And to see Michael Myers back, when he first gets his mask and puts it back on, is so great and fantastic. And he has some really great scenes in it. And besides Laurie Strode, he's really the star of the film as well, I think, and he does the best job. Obviously, Nick Castle doesn't play him doing the stunts, as Nick Castle is a man in his 60s, I think, now. But there is some great moments that he does have within it, and it's really fantastic to see his return. And the music is fantastic. John Carpenter and his son Cody come back to do the music. He does a variation on the Halloween theme that he created for the first film, but he also adds something different. There's also some other music that he adds to it, in particular tense scenes, and I think the music is fantastic. I love Carpenter, really like the script and the idea of the film, and to come back and being heavily involved as a consultant, but also be able to do the music once again, I think is brilliant, and a great use of a talented filmmaker that hasn't made a film in quite a long time, not since The Ward, and would like to see him do at least one more escape film. He's done Escape from New York and Escape from LA. I'd like to see him do another film as well. It ultimately was everything I wanted it to be, and more. It was fun, entertaining. It was great to see Michael Myers and Laurie Strode back on screen again, and it was fantastic at the fact that it negated all the other films, all the other mysterious timelines and variety of things that didn't quite work, and just sort of focused on the main story. And to skip 40 years ahead was fantastic. I like we get to see more of the sanitarium that we ever did in the whole series of the films, and we get an introduction to that. A lot of the kills are a reference to the original film or also some of the other Halloween sequels, but I kind of like that. There were some really inventive kills as well as the film went on, and there's a lot of twists and turns in it that I didn't quite expect. I'm not going to get into spoilers, but there is something that transpires, a choice a character makes, or a choice that was made for the character, and I don't quite think that works. It looked like they were going down a track I didn't think was a very good idea, and then they switched back to another direction, and I was happy for that, because if they went down that track, I may have not enjoyed the film as much as I have. The film would go in one direction, you think that, and then they'd flip back and twist it in another direction. It was like this thing of saying, you think you know where this is going? Well, we're going to flip this on you and change in a different direction. And they kept doing that throughout the film, and I thought that was a great idea. It was refreshing to do that sort of thing. It was a bit unpredictable what was going to transpire. You knew people were going to die, obviously, because it's a Halloween film, but just the direction of the film changed and flowed differently than you'd expect. And I really liked that. It was refreshing and different. Final verdict. Look, if you like the Halloween films, you'll probably get a kick out of this. If you're a fan of the original film, you'll probably like this as well. If you like a film that's sort of looking at trauma in a horror movie environment, I think you might get a lot out of this. I don't know if this film's going to be for everyone. Horror fans, I think, should go and see it. And I know it'll divide audiences. Some people really like it, some people won't. Some people like some of it and some people won't like the others. There's a lot I like about it, but like I said, there are issues with it. It's not a perfect film, but it's definitely going in my top 10 of the year because I thoroughly enjoyed what I did see. Look, I'm going to give this film 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed it, and like I said, it had issues, and if those issues were sorted out and taken a different direction, I may have given it a 5-star rating. But 4.5, I think it deserves it for the nostalgic feel that I felt, for the characters I enjoyed, the smile it brought me to see Michael Myers back on screen in such a fantastic way, as well as Laurie Strode. It's not going to be for everyone, but it will find an audience, and I think it's doing really well in the box office, and I think Jason Blum has really created another successful film. He's a producer who's doing really well, using limited amount of money. This was only made for $15 million and becoming quite successful with minimal amounts of money used to make certain films, and I'm really fantastic. He's like the new age Roger Corman in a way. Anyway, that's all from me today. If you enjoyed what you've seen here, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.